I have Stephen Monatelli with me, and you've seen his work in Rolling Stone, Daily Beast, and other publications. He's a great journalist who has been covering CPAC. I'm sure it's something that folks didn't pay a lot of attention to, given all of the very serious conflict that's going on in Ukraine. But I do think there are important things that happen, and we should discuss them. So their theme was awake, not woke, whatever that means. I'm thinking that they were probably just not as awake as they think they are. But I wanted to open with a clip from Charlie Kirk, who is the founder of Talking Points USA. If you're not familiar with him, I think he is the king of non sequitur. He tends to make arguments where he relates two topics that are completely not relatable at all, but he does it anyway. He sees himself as a conservative savior for universities. So let's go ahead and play that clip, Colin.
I want to be part of an extinction event for the political woke left to put them into complete and total irrelevancy for the next 20 or 30 years. Now, in order to do that, though, we as conservatives must get our priorities right. We must be very honest with each other, and our leaders must be honest with you about what really matters. You see, we are a nation in multiple crises right now. We are $30 trillion in debt. We have the most suicidal, alcohol-addicted, drug-addicted generation in history. We got a lot of problems. So we have to demand from our leaders not just solutions, but direct addressing of what actually matters. For example, the U.S. southern border matters a lot more than the Ukrainian border. In fact, I want every Republican leader that comes up on stage the next couple days to call what's happening on the southern border an invasion, because 2 million people waltzed into our country this last year. I'm more worried about how the cartels are deliberately trying to infiltrate our country than a dispute 5,000 miles away, cities we can't pronounce, places that most Americans can't find on a map. Now, I'm not defending the actions of dictators halfway across the world. What I'm saying, though, is when your own country is falling apart, I don't want to hear lectures about why we need to send our troops halfway across the world when we are being invaded.
Okay, so let's clarify something. It is Turning Point USA. My bad, Freudian slip there, although Talking Point USA sort of works. Charlie Kirk, let's talk about him for a second. He makes a lot of arguments that are about things that aren't related, aren't mutually exclusive. In addition to immigration, I know he talked about voting fraud, the big lie, controlling he said the government is controlling how we breathe, host of other things. What is your take on Charlie Kirk?
Well, it sounds like he wants to make college kids dumber, and he's a self-reflection of that agenda. I mean, he said something that was true, which is a lot of people in America can't find a lot of these countries on a map. And I don't know if that's something to be using as a point of defense. Right. I feel like it's reflective of a sad truth is, look at literacy rates in this country and just go get a drink. The reality is, there are a lot of people who may not understand the geopolitical nature of what's going on. It's complicated. It's really sad and depressing. But he's trying to wield it as if it were just a cudgel for these other priorities that it has nothing to do with. It's really shameful stuff. Although I will say that at the Turning Points USA booth, one young man told me that I should thank capitalism because my outfit was swaggy and that capitalism has never killed anyone.
Oh, shit. Why am I not surprised by that? It's interesting to me that these guys constantly conflate capitalism with innovation as if these things are the same, right? They go in lockstep, and it's just not the case. And in fact, most technology that we have in this country that's been used by corporations was at some point developed by government funding. I don't think that's a controversial statement, but they don't seem to understand that, right? It's capitalism is king.
No kidding. And I mean, if we want to get into economics or political economy or sociology, any of those disciplines that are pretty important to understanding what's going on in any of these topics, markets are different than capitalism. There are socialist countries that have markets. There's theory that involves socialism and markets, just as an example. So it's ignorance. It's ignorance. It's the conflation of concepts that are either unrelated or are distinct and should not be simply collapsed into these buzzwords that they like to deploy to get the crowd going.
All right. So I want to let's move on to Candace Owens for a second, because she's the counterpoint to Charlie Kirk at Turning Point USA. And also, just always saying hypocritical things, or again, things that where she doesn't understand the context of what she's discussing. I think back, of course, to that infamous moment when she was sort of like softballing Hitler to Congress when she was discussing white supremacy, which I know circulated all over the internet for good reason. But let's go ahead and cut to her clip, and she's talking about, well, I'll let you hear it.
It has never been clearer, especially over these last 2 years in the era of COVID, just how much power we as parents have ceded to the government. And then there's that fashionable brainwash, which we see at home when you're watching the pollution of the mainstream media narrative that tells us that we ought to just trust the experts, right? Trust the experts. Don't even think about it. Go to work. Trust the experts. Here's what you need to know. You need to put a filthy cloth over the mouth of your innocent child. Trust the experts. On the second dose, the third dose, the fourth dose, the never-ending doses of vaccines, just trust the experts and don't ask questions, because you're not smart enough to understand this. The ever-changing, minute-by-minute science, the Fauci science, the Bill Gates science. Trust the experts. That when it comes to our children, we are the experts. We make the decisions.
Every time I hear this clip, I laugh because she says, the science, ever-changing science. By definition, Candace, science is ever-changing. Science progresses on findings, and when you reach a conclusion that tells you something that you thought was wrong, was right is incorrect, you change your opinion. That's what you do. That's the point. She doesn't seem to get that. Also, trust the experts. This is like, I did my own research, right? Oftentimes I hear people say that, and what follows next is just not accurate. So, but she's definitely playing into that crowd with this speech, right? This is, we're not going to trust the experts because they've led us wrong. We don't like what they're saying to us. The vaccine, third, fourth, fifth doses. This is common for most vaccines. Most vaccines do have booster shots, so this is nothing new either. So what else did Candace talk about that you saw that you thought was kind of crazy? Can I use the word crazy? Is that fair?
You can use whatever words you want. Opinion is the First Amendment, baby. So she talked about bear gender and bear sex for like the first 5 minutes.
Wait, I missed this. What do you mean? What? Please.
So she gave this like a long-winded metaphor about how mama bears will maul any bear that tries to come near them when they got a baby cub, and that the male bears will try to kill the cubs in order to have sex, basically. And she was trying to give this like long-winded analogy to say, like, the male bears, those are the pharmaceutical bureaucrats, those are the school boards, and the mama bears need to, we need to be more like the mama bears.
Wow.
And then she just like launched into this whole idea of like, when did we start co-parenting with the federal government? And then meanwhile, I live in Texas, right? And I don't know if you've seen the news about the governor and the attorney general basically saying, if you got a trans kid or if you give them compassionate medical care, you're going to jail, Buster. Sorry. So there's like, no sense of the dissonance here, but it is as sharp as I've ever seen it. And she went on to say a bunch of other stuff. I mean, like, first off, if we're putting a filthy cloth on your child's mouth, you're putting the filthy cloth on your child's mouth, ma'am. Like, what are you doing? Like, I am not putting a filthy cloth on my face. It's because I'm a sanitary human being who takes a shower. Like, Jesus Christ, the lengths that people go to this to create these straw man arguments and these points, it's astonishing, and what people react to is even more astonishing. Like you can hear it in the crowd responses.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, let's be honest. I think a lot of the media personalities that are going on and on about vaccines are doing so because they're getting clicks. Like it's what they're looking at. I don't know. I don't know if everybody making these claims actually believes them, because most of the folks that I say talking about this actually in the real world are vaccinated.
Well, you might remember the philosopher who said this. There's like was it Schopenhauer? They basically made the argument in like one of their pithy books about argumentation. Like it doesn't matter if someone actually believes what they're saying. If they keep
Right.
saying it and they act on it, and then there's the difference is futile.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.